Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Netherlands number 13. We left off having destroyed the Holy Roman Empire and opening up a massive set of opportunities for expansion in continental Europe. Now, I'm hardly one to waste such an opportunity, or to even be responsible with how I take advantage of one, so what we're going to do is just slam headlong into Europe. Now, we've recently taken a lot of lands that really Europe hasn't gotten over us taking, so we're probably going to get a coalition in the next few moments. Meanwhile, we do still want to integrate Scotland, but we don't want to have them be reformed, so we go ahead and force convert them, although that does push them up to 70 Liberty Desire, and we'll have to wait a bit before we can integrate them. Now, the Hansa joins a coalition against us, and they do take quite a bit of land, taking advantage of the lack of an emperor. And we are still in a war that the French have called. So we're just going to wait for a bit in that, and build up our forces so that we can just smash into the Hansa and the rest of the coalition before any more members join. We do have a few truces that are about to end, so we want to get in and out of this war as quickly as possible so we can defeat this half of the coalition before any new members arise. And we go ahead and press forward a bit and then hang back. They do send an army deep into our countryside, so we're just going to smash it and move on from there. We are still in the war that the French have called, so they may not join us if we have to call them to arms, although I'm not really too worried about that, given how we just won the last battle. And we managed to win that battle, stack wipe one of their armies, and win the subsequent engagement, which means we are on a roll. We're going to go ahead and attack the one member of this alliance bloc that isn't in the coalition, and hopefully get them to peace out early. Now, the rest of the Hansa's armies aren't really doing anything, and hopefully we'll be able to get the Scottish down to below 50% Liberty Desire so we can continue to integrate them. Apparently, a change that has been made recently makes it so you cannot actively integrate someone who has high Liberty Desire. It's a bit unfortunate, but we'll deal with that as the time comes. Meanwhile, a massive enemy army luckily avoids our split force, which could have done us a significant bit of damage. And the Danish are actually in a separate war against the Hansa as well, so we have their forces distracting the Hansas without even having us wait another 10 years before we can call them into another war, as it's something they're taking care of on their own. And we do manage to go ahead and peace out with Württemberg. We don't get anything except a bit of money and them to renounce one of their relations, although quite frankly they don't matter all that much. Hopefully the truce will keep them out of a coalition and we won't have to fight them for a while. Meanwhile, with that done, we can focus on the Hansa, and also just with our country in general. We are in a pretty good spot. Scotland is converting their provinces. We're going to build a small force and just go ahead and siege all the fortless provinces that the Hansa still controls. Their army is being very passive, which is great for us. And while it's probably grossly irresponsible, we are going to take their lands and just sort of double down with our aggressive expanding into Germany. We do have a bit of a rebellion in one of our colonial nations, but I'm sure they'll take care of that on their own. And there is a large force of the Hansa, so we're going to go ahead, split a small group off. We actually have a very nice leader out of our, or nice general out of our leader. We go ahead and we attack the Hansa's armies, win. We send one half of our force down to destroy them before they can recuperate. Unfortunately, we lose that, and we have a rebellion to deal with. So we'll just build up our forces and deal with that. Luckily, that makes it so that we notice there is a large rebellion in Scotland. So we're going to go ahead and ship half of our army off to Great Britain to hopefully just defeat those rebellions and pacify the provinces. Luckily, there aren't any forts in the area, so it's going to be about a month-and-a-half long thing. Unfortunately, there's another rebellion, but we send our forces up to deal with that. And we make it so that Scotland is supportive, so they'll hopefully come in and help us, because we won't win that battle alone, and even still, it's a close-run thing. Anyway, with all of that resolved, we can hopefully see about piecing out with the Hansa. We haven't quite finished the last siege, and in fact, they're very close to sieging one of our provinces. We luckily managed to prevent that. With all that done and taken care of, we're going to go back to the siege, but it looks as though we can just make peace on fairly decent terms anyway, so we go ahead and do that. Now we can just finish up coring those provinces. I consider selling our lands in Norway, but we're under 100% aggressive expansion, so it doesn't really matter too much. We go ahead and declare war on the other half of the coalition, which formed essentially just moments after we made war on the first half. And we're actually fighting Württemberg again. They attempt to break our siege, but we managed to get reinforcements there quickly enough and actually win the siege. We do go ahead and build up a much larger mercenary army, as there is a very significant force sieging us out. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to win that battle, so we call the French in. It's been, luckily, over 10 years since our last call to arms, so they are able to help us. Unfortunately, the French are not doing any better. However, a combined Dutch and French army does win the battle, and we begin sieging out our target. There are a few enemy sieges taking place, but it's nothing too concerning. And now that the French are on our side, we should be strong enough to just take out any opposition that remains. And saying as much, we do go ahead and do that. We do limit our mercenaries instead of taking the debuffs to the provinces, as we are hoping to get a decent number of them. And at this point, we're going to just go ahead and unsiege, or siege out Württemberg and make peace with them again. I probably could have gotten a different peace deal with them that would have broken their terms with the new coalition, however, I didn't quite think of it at the time. And at any rate, it's not as though it's too concerning. We'll just siege out one or two of their provinces and make an easy peace, same as we did last time. And that'll push back the date until they could conceivably join a coalition against us until the truce runs out, which will be even later now. So we do go ahead and do that, and unfortunately this peace deal will give us more overextension than we can actually sustain, as we still haven't cored those very expensive lands in Norway, and quite frankly I think it's about time we give up on that dream. Norway is now a vassal of Denmark, and if we're going to be aggressively expanding into Central Europe, we'll need all the allies we can. So it doesn't really make sense to antagonize the Danes all that much. And we'll go ahead and just sell the provinces back to Norway. I consider leaving a foothold, but it would still cost so much admin power to core that it really isn't worth it whatsoever. So what we're going to do is, over the next brief interval of peace, we will go ahead and sell those provinces back to Norway. We probably got as much gold as we can expect. The English colonial empire has fallen apart, so we can go ahead and just declare war on their colonial nations and not have to worry about a large kind of global scale war. So we may end up doing that. However, that also means that England itself is more or less alone, and we can focus on destroying them as soon as our truce is up. Now, speaking of truces, we can probably expect a very large coalition once our truces end, which is a bit worrying. However, we do have a series of strong allies, including the French, Poland, Lithuania, and Denmark. We may be able to form an alliance with Muscovy, however, I don't actually do that at this time, and we go ahead to fight a rebellion in our vassal Connacht, and just take a look at the global situation. Now, Connacht deals with the rebellion before we get troops there, but it's probably a good idea to get our forces over to England. And we do end up rivaling Spain, and hopefully that won't upset the French too much, as we do need them as an ally. But the Spanish are probably going to be a rival of ours for the rest of the game, so it makes sense to rival them. Now we do go ahead and build up our forces a small amount. We do want to just devastate the English when we do go to war, although that is still a small ways off. And there are a couple new provinces, or new nations, that have broken off from the Hansa, which we can declare war on. And we'll probably take advantage of that. We are fabricating a claim right now on one of them. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, get that all set up, and declare the first war. We're also probably going to improve our relations with Connacht enough that we can just go ahead and begin integrating them as well. Now that we're shifting back to a more continental focus, I want to use most of our diplomatic relations slots on powerful European allies and not our own vassals. which is in part why we are giving up on vassalizing Norway and releasing Sweden from Denmark, is, quite frankly, I would rather have, say, Muscovy and Milan as allies than break apart an already existing and powerful ally. And that will basically allow us to catapult into Germany more powerfully and more successfully than otherwise. So we do go ahead, we made peace, and we can begin integrating Connacht. We're going to just be draining our diplomatic power now as we are integrating 2 vassals. And as soon as our peace deal with England ends, we don't want them to join the coalition against us. We need to just destroy them as soon as the truce ends. So that's basically the plan. We're going to start shipping over our forces in order to just devastate the English. And if this war goes anything like the previous few have gone, it's going to be a cakewalk. And, unlike the last few wars, we're actually declaring war on England directly, which means we should be able to get the full value of the peace deal. We do go ahead and declare war the day the truce ends, smash their army, send our forces into South Africa, and just begin sieging London, and we are now occupying every province of theirs. All that's left is London, and just like that, it's gone. Plus, it'll take just 100% war score for us to take all of their provinces left on Great Britain. Just like that, the English are essentially destroyed. They won't make peace, however, due to their holdings in West Africa keeping the peace deal below 100, but we can just send one of our armies down over to West Africa to deal with them. I consider sending it off to Mexico, but decide against it as we really should get the English out of the war first. With that said and done, we do get a call to arms from Poland against Austria. Austria and Bohemia are the 2 major powers in the coalition against us at this point, so we go ahead and accept. That way they can't join the coalition war, and when we make peace they'll have to wait until the truce ends before they can join it again. So just like that, we can hopefully just destroy the English. Our navy is very near dead, so we go ahead and get fleet basing rights, and we're probably going to take 1 province, basically the coastal province of England's African ally. That way we can park our ships there and get them back up to 100% before we sail back. We go ahead and park them there and get that coastal province. And now England is essentially out of the war, so we can go ahead, make peace taking the remainder of Great Britain, and now we just have to wait for our vassals to be integrated and we will control all of the British Isles. Now we don't have enough admin points to fully core the entire thing, but we're in a pretty strong position. As soon as we get out of this war with Austria, we can focus on defeating the current coalition, which is at this point just Bohemia and a few randoms, and we will be able to just carve a path of destruction and conquest through Germany and Middle Europe.